everybody, welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials that are going on YouTube. Today I'm previewing a trial that starts on Wednesday, and I'm just going to put it all out there. I'm going to tell you everything I know about this case. The jury probably will not hear a lot of what I'm going to tell you, but I thought you would need a flavor for how we got to the point where we're at now in 2023 for a crime that was committed in 2008. Yep. So currently working on, well, last night I was working on my event painting. I got the whole bottom row finished. Holy moly, the confetti. And if you're new to the channel and you don't know a lot about diamond painting, confetti is where you have like a small section of the painting and it's got like 20, 30 different colors in it, and you're changing colors constantly, and it's mind-boggling sometimes. Some people enjoy it. I don't mind it, but I needed to take a breath and work on my logo painting. Yes, it's a painting of my logo, and I'm super excited about it. I'll put a picture here. And once I'm finished with that, it's gonna sit behind me during the shows. How cool. Anyway, I finished probably 2 sections of it. I'll just show you the corner. That's all you can see is the corner. Look how sparkly that is. I put in that gold metallic here, and wherever there was supposed to be white, I used a real pretty 5200 AB. It's sparkling so much you can't even see it. Oh no. Yeah, it's pretty. There are like 100 different pinks in it, and you know me, I love me some pink. I like Pink the singer too. All right, let's go back to this trial. So this is the trial of Nevada. Yes, Vegas represent. Yeah, we're gonna go to Nevada. I'm gonna have to get some of my. I'm gonna have to recruit some of my subscribers out there in Las Vegas. Please go cover this trial for me. Anyway, Nevada versus Thomas Randolph. Now, you may have heard about this case because Dateline did, this was a few years back, probably 2021, that they came out with a 3-part docu-series on this guy. He is on trial starting Wednesday for the death of his 6th wife. He's not King Henry VIII. Might think he is. Actually, they actually call him, what do they call him? The Tiger. Remember, what was that guy's name? The Tiger King. He, because he likes to sport a long gray mullet. He's had like, if you look at pictures of him going way back to the first wife, yeah, he was sported a mullet most of his life, and facial hair, and the last time I saw a picture of him recently, he had grown his hair out long, because at one point he cut it short, and I'll tell you why, how that happened. But he had his hair long and he had it in 2 ponytails. Now, this guy has the unfortunate, um, I don't know what you want to call it, but he looks like a woman. He does. He looks like a woman. And when he comes into court sporting these ponytails, I thought, whoa, is that a woman? No, it's not. It's not a woman. It's a guy. But oh, creepy. All right. So this is an event that all happened on May 8th, 2008, when Thomas and his wife, his 6th wife, Sharon Randolph, she was 57 years old. They decide, hey, we're going to go out for dinner. So they go to this local casino that's down the street from their home. They have dinner, and she loved to go to movies. They were supposed to go for dinner and movies. Well, she decided, I don't want to go to the movie. I'm feeling a little frisky. Let's go home. So she was like the sweetest looking lady, really. She really cute. I don't know how she ended up with this guy. If they met on Match.com. Oh my God. Is that thing still around, Match.com? Uh, I shouldn't criticize. I met one of my boyfriends. Well, more than one. I've had a couple of boyfriends off of Match.com. Yeah, it's an interesting platform. So she meets him there. They meet. He, at the time, is saying that he's a special education teacher, but he's out of work and he lives up in Utah. And She lived down in the Vegas area. So he comes to live with her. They go on this cruise and they come back married. Okay. Her daughter, Colleen, is a little flabbergasted about this rush to marriage. But, it is what it is. Now, Colleen, at the time that this occurred, the death of Sharon Randolph, Colleen was 5.5 months pregnant with her daughter. She said that her mom had moved from New Jersey to Nevada to have a better life. She went to cosmetology school. She was working as a beautician and she was loving her life. So she decides she's going to go home and have sex with her husband. And they stop and pick up takeout on the way home. Now, I don't know why. Who you went to dinner and now you're picking up takeout on the way home? I don't. Oh, I understand that, but that's the least of what I understand in this case. So she gets out of the car and enters the house. He has to park. He's parking the car in their 2-car garage. So that's why she got out and went in the house ahead of time, because once you pull into those garages, it's very difficult to get in and out of a vehicle. So he pulls into the garage, and by the time he gets his vehicle parked and he gets out and he comes in the house, he opens the garage door and there's this long hallway, and he sees Sharon lying at the end of the hallway at the entrance to their bedroom. She's lying on the floor. Her purse is there, the bag of food that they stopped and purchased is there next to her. So he's calling out her name, and right to his left, before he goes down the hallway, is like a coat closet. So he walks in there, reaches for his 9mm, because he said he saw at the end of the hallway a shadow of someone. So he gets his 9mm. When he says, "I put it in my pocket." He walks to the door of that closet, and there's the gunman. And the gunman, who's got a ski mask on, shoots a couple rounds at him. So he gets his gun and shoots at the gunman, who runs down the hall to the garage. So he starts to go to his wife and he hears the gunman in the garage, and he's like, well, maybe he's not dead. So he goes out to the garage, shoots him a couple more times. Sorry about the clock. Then, now it hasn't got to his wife yet. So now he's on his way to his wife, but he can't get to her because he's got to make sure there's not a second intruder, because he doesn't know. He doesn't even know who the first one was. So he's looking and he's searching the residence. There's no second intruder. So finally he gets to the bedroom doorway, gets to her, and she's not doing well at all. So he finally gets around to calling 911. So he tells the 911 operator that while he was parking the car, he heard gunshots. So he ran into the house and he saw his wife lying there. So they're trying to talk him into. I think they had to ask him almost 15 times to go over to your wife and start doing CPR, because he's doing this and he's doing that, and got very, very weird. Now, interestingly, a neighbor had seen or heard the gunshots, and we know that the neighbor heard the gunshots at 8:33 p.m. because he said, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and I told him I hear gunshots, and then he hangs up. So they pulled this guy's cell phone records, and that phone call with his friend was at 8:33. Thomas Randolph doesn't call 911 dispatch until 8:45. 12 minutes. What is he doing for 12 minutes? In any case, they're treating this as a home invasion burglary, because when the cops get there, there's a body in the garage where the ski mask is nowhere near the body. What's near the body is a bag containing quite a bit of jewelry. Now, about 1 week later, they come back to the residence with Thomas Randolph, and they're doing what they call a video walkthrough. Now, if I can find an isolated clip of this video walkthrough, I will put it here, but I'm sure it's going to be shown to the jury on Wednesday, and I could probably pull it then. In any case, he participates in this video walkthrough, same time of night, like 8:30 at night, and he walks the cops through what happened that night leading up to the death of his wife. Sharon does not make it. And it's pretty much the way I just described his walkthrough, but he's very dramatic about it. Boom, boom, boom. And you can remember the last trial, the 9mm. The 9mm is a combat weapon. It does a lot of damage. So he's interrogated by the police, and later on they find out that he had told dispatch he heard the shots, but he told them, I didn't hear the shots, the ones that were fired at his wife. I didn't hear them. He says, I'm deaf. I didn't hear it. So we've got some inconsistencies about his story. Not only that, when he sees who's in the garage, Thomas Randolph says, oh, that's Michael. And they said, well, you know him? He says, yeah, he does handyman work for me. And they said, well, what's his last name? And he says, I don't know. No. So they start investigating, and they're like, something's not right about this scenario. So just something's not right. So they decide they're going to go interview Michael's family, his brothers. So they fly out to interview Michael's brothers. And one of them says, Michael told me that he met this white guy on a street corner, and the guy stopped in his vehicle and said, hey, you want to do some handyman work for me? And Michael said, sure. So the guy was paying him $600 a week to do some stuff around the house. Now, I think you can see where this is going, right? So the other brother said that, well, Michael told him that he was given a 9mm weapon. He goes, who gave you that? He says, oh, this white guy, this white dude that I'm working for. Interesting. And then they interviewed a very good friend of Michael's. This is a woman. They've been friends for about 15 years, very close friends. And she said that Michael had told her that this guy that had hired him to do the handyman work had asked him, would you take money to kill my wife? Okay. And they proceed to find out that Sharon has 4 different life insurance policies totaling about $350,000, all taken out by Thomas Randolph. And he is the sole beneficiary of all of those policies. So he thinks, okay, I'm inheriting this house. I've got the life insurance. And Colleen pops up, Sharon's daughter, and she's like, nope, he had a will. The will that he had showed him as the beneficiary of all Sharon's property. She goes, nope, mom did a new will. Surprise! She was getting suspicious. Sharon was getting suspicious of him. And I'll tell you why. It'll become clear by the end of this show why she was getting suspicious. She goes to her friend and she writes out a new will. And she tells the friend, if anything ever happens to me, this is my most recent will. So this will invalidated the will that Thomas Randolph had. So he's pissed. And Colleen is afraid for her life. She's like, the house is mine, not yours. So she proceeds to lock Thomas out of the house. And he's not happy about it. And she's scared because, he's got all of his belongings in the house. And in any case, one of the other strange things about this crime scene, or some of the other strange things, is that all of the ballistic evidence, where would you think it would be? In the hallway, right? No, it was in the garage. If shots were fired in that hallway by Thomas or the intruder, there would have been shell casings in the hallway. There were not. Also, the ski mask. Michael was shot in the head. The ski mask didn't have any holes in it. So that means that ski mask came off, or it was never on, and this whole thing was staged to look like a burglary gone wrong. Home invasion, burglary gone wrong. Interesting, huh? So they're trying to find enough evidence to get an arrest warrant out for Thomas Randolph. They go to the prosecutors. The prosecutor's like, this is not enough. I know everything looks strange, but this is not enough. So then they start looking at his previous 5 wives. And these investigators are flying all over the country investigating so they can get enough information to get an arrest warrant for Thomas Randolph for the murder of his wife Sharon. So they fly up to Washington State to interview his first wife. She tells them, now she's still living. She said, we were married on August 2nd, 1975, the good old 70s. Yes, I was still in high school. She was 18. He was 20 at the time. They get married at his parents' home in Utah. She said his parents were lovely to me. He was charming, he was witty, he was intelligent, everything you would want in the man, including a mullet. What God's gift, right? Um, they quickly had 2 children, Justice and Krista, but he couldn't keep a job. So he gets into drugs. He starts drug dealing, and on April 7th, 1983, she's had enough. She said he started becoming very controlling and psychologically abusive, and she said, I'm out. So she divorces him in 1983. And yes, he had a life insurance policy out on her. So she starts dating a guy named Steve. Steve is one of Thomas's friends. I know this is just the beginning, folks. Steve is one of Thomas's friends. So she starts dating him, and Thomas tells Steve, that's like stealing meat out of my refrigerator. What? Okay. But she goes on to marry Steve. But at one point, Steve says Thomas asked him if he would take money to kill his wife. Yeah, interesting, huh? Then we have wife number 2, Becky Randolph, a woman after my own heart with that name. Yes, they were married in 1983. He gets divorced in April of 1983, marries Becky in 1983. She is found dead in her home, shot in the head. Now, the aunt describes Thomas as this arrogant smartass, which is a perfect description of him. She says that Becky told her that she was very uncomfortable in this marriage. Thomas had gotten her into drugs. He was dealing drugs. He would bring home other women. He had a room down in the basement that he kept locked, but he would bring home other women to have sex with. And then he would bring Becky down to watch him having sex with these other women. She didn't like it at all. At one point, they were very, very much in debt. Their electric had been turned off. Their utilities were off. So good old aunt gives them $2,000 to get caught up on all their bills. Thomas Randolph takes that money and pays off the premiums on her life insurance policy instead of getting caught up with utilities. So Becky shoots herself in the head. Now, when cops get there, they find Becky upstairs. There's a suicide note on the kitchen counter. They go upstairs. Lying on the waterbed with the covers pulled up is Becky, dead, shot in the head. Yeah. So at first it's ruled a suicide. But then a guy comes forward named Eric Tarantino. Yes. Now, Eric, who was the star witness in the trial that you're going to hear about, he claims that he was being groomed to kill Becky. That he and Thomas Randolph became friends. They would go out to the shooting range. They would practice shooting. And he did the whole thing. Would you ever take money to kill Becky? And he's like, no, I really like Becky. No, I'm not going to kill Becky. And he refused to do it. So one of the other things that this guy would do for Thomas Randolph that he would do is Thomas, like I said, was dealing drugs. So this guy was like the the collector, so to speak. Thomas would say, "This guy owes me money," and this guy would go collect the money. But he drew the line at killing Becky. Now, Eric Tarantino, meanwhile, gets to know Becky and he really likes her. So he tells her, "Hey, listen, your husband tried to hire me to kill you." So meanwhile, law enforcement, they're looking at this suicide going, wait a minute. So one of the investigators says, usually if you're going to shoot yourself, you're going to shoot yourself in the head like this, not like this, which is how she was shot. So because of that, they decide they're going to go back to the home and they're going to continue the investigation. They want some more evidence collected. By the time they get back to the home, which they thought had been secured by the county attorney, it had not. Thomas Randolph had gotten into the home and cleaned the entire home. Carpet's gone, walls are painted, everything's pristine. They can't do any further investigation. So, but when Eric Tarantino comes forward, they decide they're going to charge him with murder. So he goes on trial for the murder of Becky Randolph, based on the testimony of Eric Tarantino. Meanwhile, because he knows he's sitting in jail, Thomas Randolph, he knows that Eric Tarantino is going to be testifying against him. He tries to take out a hit on Eric Tarantino. Unfortunately, the person that he tried to hire to put out a hit on Tarantino was an undercover police officer. All the luck, right? No. So he gets charged with soliciting this hitman to kill Tarantino. Meanwhile, Tarantino testifies, but the jury's not buying it. They thought it was a suicide. Thomas Randolph took the stand in his own defense, was on the stand for 2.5 hours, telling the jury how disturbed she was, how addicted to drugs she was. She was constantly suicidal, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. And he walked. He collects the life insurance policy on her, and he decides he's going to sue the police department for his arrest and libel. And they settle with him. They never, it doesn't go to trial. They just make a business decision that it's better just to pay this guy off and make this thing go away. So he collected the life insurance money on Becky, and he got money from a settlement for libel against the city and the county. Crazy, right? So wife number 3, her name is Leona, and they lived in Indiana. They were only married for 11 months, and there's very little known about that marriage, but they divorce. She goes on to live for another 10 years before she dies of cancer. Nothing related to Thomas Randolph that we know of. Then the next wife, Gaina Randolph, she described that they got married. He was cleaning his gun one day and it went off. And by this time, she's in this controlling relationship and she's like, I'm out of here. So he goes to work the next day. She packs up her stuff and she leaves. So she is still alive. But they do find out in that case, there was a guy named Glenn Morrison that he was grooming to kill his wife, Guyana. And there were insurance policies involved in that case as well. Then we have wife number 5, Frances Randolph. Now, Frances had a heart condition. She needed a valve replacement. Now, valve replacements aren't necessarily emergencies. It's a procedure that needs to be done, when you feel like you're ready. Well, Thomas kept encouraging his wife, Frances, go have the surgery. Go ahead. I'll take care of you. Have the surgery. So, and when he married Frances, she had a young daughter. He took that young daughter in. She considered him her father. He would take her to cheerleading and games. And he was like, good old dad. But he he was encouraging his wife to have this surgery. So she has the valve surgery. Everything goes great. She's sitting up, she's eating, she's recovering in the hospital for several days after the procedure. She's doing just fine. So Thomas comes in. The daughter is visiting with her mom, and he says, "Hey, can you give your mom and I a minute?" So she says, "Oh, sure." So she leaves. The only person in the room now with Francis is Randolph. Randolph spends 45 minutes in the room with Francis, comes out, and tells the daughter, "Your mom died." Then he's running around town telling everybody that she died on the operating table. And he collects life insurance in addition to suing the hospital. Sues the hospital. They settle. So now he's getting the life insurance and the money from the hospital, which the daughter says was in the range of $1.2 million. So, what do you think he does? He goes on to find wife number 6. Yes. So, all told, the investigators on wife number 6, Sharon's home invasion murder, spend 8 months trying to get enough evidence to take this guy, that the prosecutors will issue an arrest warrant so they can take this guy and put him away. So, they arrest him. He's behind bars. They have the case. It's tried. He is convicted. He's sentenced to the death penalty. Well, during that trial, information came in about Becky, the second wife, who whose death was ultimately ruled a suicide, and he was found not guilty. But they bring in that information, which is a prior bad act. And there's a very narrow line that judges walk when they're allowing prior bad act evidence into a trial. They have to ask, is this more probative than prejudicial? In this case, the judge says, yes, it is. It's obviously the way he does things. He grooms people to take out his wives. He puts out life insurance policies on them, and then he collects on the money. Yeah. And one of the things that the Tarantino guy from earlier that he tried to put out a hit on, he was convicted on trying to put the hit out on him, and he spent 18 months in prison for that before he got out and started collecting wives again. In any case, Tarantino, he would talk to Tarantino about different scenarios to kill Becky, the second wife. And one of those scenarios that they talked through was a burglary gone wrong, home invasion gone wrong scenario. So all of that comes in. So what do you think happens? The Nevada Supreme Court overturns that conviction and overturns the death penalty, sends it back to be retried. Now you're saying double jeopardy. No. The only thing that would be double jeopardy is if he was retried for the murder of Becky because he was found not guilty. So they cannot retry him. But if you're found guilty and it's overturned for some sort of error, the prosecution can try you as many times as they want, or they can drop the charges. Well, his trial starts on Wednesday, August 9th. Now, I know there is going to be a hearing prior to that, either today or tomorrow, I'm not sure which day, where they're going to talk about with the judge what evidence from those prior marriages can come in. One of the big reasons that the Becky case shouldn't have come in is because he was found not guilty. Right? Yeah, I know. So, do they have enough evidence without testimony regarding the second wife to convict this guy of murdering the sixth wife? That's what we're going to be watching to see this week. And I'm going to be covering that extensively for you as I do with all the trials. It's going to be an interesting one. This guy is quite the character, One of the reasons on the first trial, he came in with his scraggly hair. The judge said to him, "You're going to go get a haircut." Female judge. Haircut. Yeah. So he's sent out to get a haircut. So he comes back and he looks pretty darn good with it, not great. Well, he looks cleaned up. Let's put it like he looks like a guy. He's cleaned up. He's short gray hair. Um, Not anything in my wheelhouse. This guy's, I think he's kind of ugly, but cleaned up nonetheless. So I suspect that he's not going to be allowed to come to trial in long gray ponytails. We'll see. All right, guys, that's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the like button. Yes, please. YouTube loves it when you hit the like button. Then they share my video with other people, and I get new subscribers, and that helps to bring you more content. I will see you tomorrow in Crafting and Crime Daily. Have a great Monday. Ooh, 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 ooh. Bye.